We're sorry, you guys.
It's disgusting, man. Get a room.
Hey, I like this lighting.
We're about to begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What up? ¿Cómo están el día de hoy?
I'm never coming back to the podcast if you do that
Never
again.
coming back. Soy Beto Gudiño, es un placer estar aquí con ustedes una noche más desde Orange County, California.
Yeah.
Con David y Tania estamos aquí
Hola.
compartiendo esta noche de diciembre. Hoy es que 11 o 12.
El 12.
¿Es 12 día de la Virgencita?
Oh, sí, cierto.
11.
Oh,
¿O es
bueno.
11?
Mañana se
Ok.
lo
Oh, sí,
Mañana.
cierto. Yeah, yeah.
Mañana es el día de la
The
Virgen.
11th. The
Entonces
11th.
mañana la Guadalupana.
You should tell them the story
La
of a few years
Guadalupana
ago.
Bajo el Tepeyac. A ver, David, ¿cómo estás? Cuéntanos tu historia.
Oh, la historia fue que hace unos años estábamos en la casa de mi abuelita y ella vive en Santana. Y saben que Santana es como el meca de la comunidad hispana en Orange County. Es como si fuera East
Sí.
LA o como si fuera Los Ángeles. Entonces íbamos saliendo, ya nos íbamos. Y en eso pues llega ¿cómo se dice? La procesión o...
Procesión.
Procesión.
Está bien.
Venían cargando a la Virgen y venían cantando sus canciones, pero Tania
Oh,
no sabía que era eso,
Yeah.
no sabía que era el día de la
Freaked me
Virgen.
out.
Entonces estaba viendo a toda la gente con velas y todo, and she's like, David, open the door, open
But
the
it
door.
sounded like they were chanting something.
And I'm like,
Tienen
what?
antorchas.
Antorchas. Y ahí vienen por nosotros, vienen por los cristianos.
I'm like, abre la puerta. No, y David siempre se tarda para abrir las puertas. So I
And
was
I'm like,
freaking
what?
out.
And I'm like, what? And she's like, those people. And I'm like, oh, they're just like, they're doing their thing.
Están alabando a la
Ay,
Virgen.
mira, en todos los años que he vivido en Santana, que crecí ahí, nunca había visto eso. Nunca.
Wow.
Me asustó.
Wow, qué increíble.
Pero ya.
Tania, cuéntanos cómo te ha ido en estos últimos días.
Muy bien. Tuve ya la última sesión de Navidad. Como tomo fotos y todo eso. Ya acabé. I'm done.
Photography.
Yes.
Nice.
No
The
more
She Collective
orders.
or
The She Collective.
Nice.
All done.
All done?
Yes.
No more kids pictures
No more.
until next
I
year?
mean, I love you guys, but I'm done.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, today fue un día particularmente difícil para mí.
Oh,
Oh.
¿por qué?
No quiero hablar de eso.
Por favor, dinos.
No, pues haz de cuenta que el domingo íbamos a venir aquí a la iglesia a alabar a Dios en la mañana. Pero hay una chava que nos está ayudando que es de Argentina y su hermana que acaba de venir de Argentina. Viven aquí en Santana cerquita, pero ella toca el piano.
Oh.
Entonces, como se vienen en camión porque todavía no tienen carro, les dije, pues yo voy por ustedes y ya nos vamos a la iglesia y ensayamos, ¿va? Bueno, pues fui y cuando iba llegando allá, mi carro así como que le empezó a salir humo por todos lados.
Oh.
Bueno, era vapor, no era humo.
Ujú.
Pero pues yo en ese, ching, ¿qué le pasó, no? Y ya he tenido 2-3 problemitas con mi carro. Pero la verdad, mi carro ha sido una leyenda porque
Sí.
le he hecho de todo y siempre sigue funcionando, ¿no? Bueno, total que veníamos de regreso, les dije, ahorita le echamos agua al carro, va a funcionar. Es una camioneta. Sí va a funcionar y todo. Y veníamos de regreso ya casi para llegar a la salida del freeway. Dejó de funcionar. Ya nomás aceleraba y ya no
no.
pasaba gasolina. Y subiendo la rampa del freeway, dije, ching, creo que me voy a quedar aquí en el freeway. Y yo no quería porque pues es más peligroso. Con el puro vuelito llegamos a la gasolinera así de afuera. Pero así exactamente y a la gasolinera que estaba ahí. Y después, bueno, hoy fue el mecánico a checar la camioneta.
Ujú.
Y le cambió la manguera que estaba rota y todo. Y luego me habla y me dice, no prendió.
Oh,
Y
no.
yo, ups. Y me dice, ¿puedo hacer otra cosa para ver si... Me dijo, pero tengo que venir otro día y checarla. Y si hago eso y funciona, pues ya le hiciste. Dice, pero si no, lo más probable es que es el motor y pues te va a salir más caro. Entonces, pues ya no te conviene repararla. Entonces en esas estoy así como que, ups, ya parece que ya no voy a tener carro.
No.
Y estoy terminando un video y it's like due in a couple days, un video de una señora que cumple 50 años
Wow.
y van a ir a celebrar a Cabo. Entonces tienen que tener el video listo.
Sí.
Y estoy así como que, tengo que terminar el video, pero pienso que sí lo voy a lograr. Mañana
puedes,
una
tú puedes.
desveladita y mañana
Nice.
va a estar listo.
Sí.
Pero ahí estoy y lo más chido, bueno, lo que the thing that kind of cheered me up, que le conté a Millie. Bueno, Millie ya sabía, obviamente, pero le dije, ¿sabes qué? El mecánico dijo que a lo mejor no sirve la camioneta. No te preocupes, que es un carro. Dios tiene algo mejor para ti, te va a dar un carro más chido y que no sé qué, ¿no? Bueno, pues vamos a ver.
No,
a ver si no me ven en bicicleta.
I
Muy
could see you
pronto.
biking to church and all that.
Yeah.
But you have kids, so you need a car.
Así me los llevo en la
Yeah.
bicicleta.
Oh,
también.
sí, cierto.
On the
También.
handlebars.
Some pegs.
Some pegs. You're holding Melody like that.
Pero bueno, estamos muy contentos de estar aquí en este podcast número 4.
4.
Y el día de hoy tenemos a un invitado especial, porque ya
Yes.
nos está gustando tener invitados especiales.
Yeah,
¿Sí
you
o no?
do.
De aquí de la comunidad.
Yes.
Exactamente. Y se los voy a presentar yo porque yo ya lo conozco un poquito más. Pero me gustaría que ya después ustedes empiecen a hacerle algunas preguntas y a ver qué nos dice el muchachón. Que por cierto, para los que nos están viendo en video, está muy guapo. Y es soltero. Y por ahí así.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
We'll sponsor a date. First 5 callers.
This is our
Oh, that's
plug-in.
great.
This is
I
our
got
plug-in
you.
for
De
Match.com.
preferencia mujeres.
But we don't
libertad de
judge.
escoger
But we don't
todavía.
judge.
Oh my God.
We don't judge.
We don't judge lifestyles.
Excelente.
Jesus
bueno,
loves
pues,
all.
les quiero presentar a mi amigo Nick Corbett.
Yes,
What a cool last name.
Yeah, that is a cool name.
Such a cool last name.
Nick
Oh, it
Corbett.
sounds like Corvette, but it's not. So no relation.
It's just a cool name in
It
general.
is, yeah.
It is. Very
Like
catchy.
actor, maybe.
Actor,
Yeah.
Famous person.
boy band, you know.
Boy band, yeah.
Can be your own brand. I
There
can see
you go.
that.
Yeah.
Nick, cuéntanos un poquito quién eres tú, cuántos años tienes, qué estás haciendo por aquí en California, de dónde eres originario.
Let's see. I am 28 years young. I feel like I'm like 18 most of the time. Most people still tell me I look like I'm in high school, so definitely don't feel like I'm 28. I am from North Carolina originally, so moved out here to California like 6 years ago. Graduated college, lived in Florida for a year, and then moved out to Southern California. Yeah, it was like 2013, I think.
Wow.
So almost 6 years.
Is Florida as weird as they say it is?
I'd say, yeah, I was a retail rep for the company I was with at the time. So I had a pretty big territory within the greater Tampa Bay area. And I went to a lot of places where I was like, this puts North Carolina to shame. Like, these people are weird. Not all of them. I love you, my Florida friends. If you're watching, you're probably not, but
Nick, hay algo aquí que la gente tal vez no sabe, pero yo necesito que lo digas para que entonces empiecen a decir las muchachas, ¡es muy guapo! ¡Y habla español! ¿Dónde aprendiste español?
pues aprendí mi español en Argentina, estudié en pues che, boludo, pero ya me quitaron aquí toda la gente mexicana que hay, centroamericana aquí, ya me hicieron quitar mi acento argentino. Porque dijeron, no puedes entrar al vecindario, a la Shalimar, al Center y estar hablando así como los argentinos. Tienes que quitar eso y hablar como la gente de aquí.
They're Spanish shaming you. Terrible.
They were, but it was effy,
Beto.
but it was with good
Good intention.
This was Beto.
It was all with good intention.
No, but I think
because-
the more you hang out with Beto, the more his accent kind of just grows on you.
yeah.
Che, yo
If you didn't
I know,
notice, Beto's Mexican.
no sé cuál es mi acento ya. Mira, tengo varios.
You did a Cuban the other day, I think, that was
Mira,
pretty...
chico, es que si
it was
no
pretty
cubano,
great.
tengo que hablar de diferente manera porque estamos hablando otra cosa.
Yeah, that's pretty spot on.
We're gonna get
So
a bunch
good.
of hate mail from people from
We are.
Argentina
I'm so
and
sorry.
Cubans.
Bueno, Nick, nos conocimos, creo que fue en Maica, ¿verdad?
Yeah.
¿Por qué no explicas
Over
un
en
poquito a
Maica.
la gente, así muy a grandes rasgos, qué es Maica y tu labor ahí en esa parte de Costa Mesa?
So Mike, I think I got connected. I started going to Rock Harbor when I first moved out here within like a couple weeks. And that was one of the kind of parachurch organizations they were partnered with, nonprofits. And I've always had a heart for, well, not always, but since I was about 15, for the Latino community, and just always wanted to get involved in that. And ever since, I guess, being out of college, I hadn't had a chance. So I've found out about Micah on Rock Harbor's website and I guess I went to an info session and they had stuff with like youth and after school programs and leadership for adults. And I was like, I don't feel like I want to do any of that. And the one thing that caught my attention was an English class, like starting a class in the Shalimar neighborhood with some adults that had wanted it. And so finally I was like, I'll jump into that. And so long story short, that was a little over 5 years ago. I don't teach the English class anymore, but I've built a lot of relationships with the families and have since stepped in since the previous youth director that was employed by Micah, I guess, left for a different opportunity. I've stepped into kind of a volunteer leader position for the youth program that goes on Wednesday nights.
Excelente.
Wow.
It's a wild ride.
That's amazing. Sure. That's
I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
Very impressive.
Oye, me llama mucho la atención, bueno, que estás envuelto en Maica. La mayoría de los chavos, porque yo también he ido ahí, pues lo he visto, son latinos. Pero ¿de dónde nace esa pasión por la comunidad latina? Sabemos que hablas español, que viviste en Argentina, pero ¿de dónde surgió eso no sé, de dónde vienes tú, North Carolina?
Yeah, seriously. So, pues mi familia no es, digamos, no son amantes de la gente latina. Pues, algunos sí, como mi mamá ya ama los latinos, pero es mucho que les he enseñado a ellos. Pero, digamos, entonces yo fui lo mismo. No es que no los amé o amaba a los latinos, sino como era ignorante a la cultura latina. And so my mom, when I was 15, I guess the small church I was at was taking a mission trip to Honduras. And my dad had already been on a trip to Mexico, and he's like, no, you guys can go on this one. So my mom wanted my brother.
I pass on the Mexicans.
He was like, all right, I've already been like, Honduras is probably the same. Like, you guys have fun. I have to work.
Right.
I'm sure he had all these excuses. So my mom kind of, asked my brother and I, hey, do you guys want to go? I honestly really didn't want to go. I was extremely afraid that I was going to die from some like crazy disease. I mean, I was 15 at the time, so who knows? I had all these ideas of Honduras and third world country or whatever. And I was like, this is a waste of my summer, and like I have to raise money for this. Like this, all this stuff that I have to do to go to this country that I don't know anything about. So I kind of had that heart, which was definitely hardened toward just mission and like Latin culture and all this stuff. And like I said, I think it was mainly due to just ignorance of like what you don't know, you just don't know.
And you're 15 too. Take that into consideration. You're just like summer.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, this is one of my 10 weeks that is being taken away from me right now. So I ended up going on the trip, and no lie, by like day 2, God had completely transformed my heart from like, this is not this unknown people that are just weird and foreign and all this, but like these are people just like you. They just speak a different language and might have different, a different culture and different way of going about life. But they are, in my experience in Honduras, was like, these are maybe even some of the poorest people in the world that I interacted with, but some of the most hospitable and loving and inviting. And I think I just experienced community and relationships in a way that, I mean, I grew up in Charlotte, and, it's a city, but I grew up in the outskirts. So I really grew up in the woods, if you will. So I didn't have it's not like out here where you have neighbors, within arm's reach where you can scream at them or borrow some sugar in 5 seconds or whatever you want to do. So God, I think, just used that to give me a perspective of just a different way of life and really put in my heart this, and clearly spoke to me, because at 15, like I felt like God said, I'm calling you one day to minister, to like live among the Latin people. I always thought it would be in a different country, but it's funny how kind of God works.
And were the people that you that you went to go for that missions trip, were they churched people, or were they?
A lot of them, yes. So we, like, part of the organization we went with, it was called Cristo Salva, and they did a lot of medical ministry, but they had a lot of really ongoing connections and like healthy connections with local churches in the area. So we got to visit quite a few churches, and I actually, on that first trip, I was 15 at the time, met this kid that was 12, And he was just so curious about, the Americans. And his family lived right beside the clinic we worked out of and knew the kind of the leaders very well. And so I just even remember he would bring out his Inglés para Tontos book. And like my broken Spanish, his broken English, be practicing. Like last day I got his phone number and when I got back would call him with like phone cards. I'm sure you guys remember that before WhatsApp. Yeah. For any of you
before WhatsApp,
like young kids out there was phone cards where you paid like 50 cents a minute.
You'd have to pay like it was a 2-hour phone call or a 3-hour one.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so I kept in touch with this family, and probably I think total I've been there 6 times since I was 15. So and that's 3 of the I think 3 of those times have been just to go stay with this family, and they show me around and take me to different cool places.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
He's like enthralled with you right now.
He's like, I didn't know all this.
Wow.
What city in Honduras did you guys go see?
We were in the Departamento de Santa Bárbara, in the city of Macuelizo.
Okay.
So it's kind of on the frontera de Guatemala.
Okay.
Probably like, it's funny, I actually a few years later was in Guatemala, like, as the crow flies 10, 15 miles from where I'd been in Honduras, which was kind of wild to think about.
Oh, wow. Pretty cool.
Yep.
Increíble.
Tanya, where you want to ask some questions?
Yes. So about Micah, is this like then an organization that helps solely the Latin community, or is it open to a bunch of other things?
I think the heart is really West Side.
Okay.
I mean, I think a lot of it, the one of the founders, I can't speak for the other, I think there were 4 founders, but Christine Brooks was one of the 4 founders. She still lives in West Side, and she kind of, I would almost say, has a similar, she has much more of an advocacy kind of spirit and whatnot to her, but she lived in Venezuela for a few years, I think in her 20s, and came back, and with some friends from college, I think it was Vanguard, they started Micah kind of with this heart to reach the people of West Side. And I think especially in that time, it's changing a lot, the demographic now, but I think West Side in that time was majority Hispanic, and based on Christine's background and love for the culture, I would say probably the primary focus was that, and it still continues to be that. And really just, it's called ABCD development, so asset-based community development is kind of how they go to market, if you will.
Right.
So it's really getting to know communities and know what they have and what their skill sets are, or their giftings, and not coming in and saying, well, this is what we as outsiders think you need, but let's have a conversation around, what do you want? Wow. What does your community need? What does your community want to see happen? And where do you see this community in 10 years? And how can we come alongside and bring you maybe resources that you've been looking for, and kind of help develop you as leaders in that way.
And within that whole, the assets and all that, does that also kind of include teaching people about Jesus or about church? Or
it does, yeah. So a lot of, I think, so Micah is part of CCDA, which is Christian Community Development Association. Okay. So as part of that, I think it's in the DNA. Even I guess the verse of Micah is referring back to Micah 6:8.
Okay.
So really, in everything they do, yes, it's kind of this idea of, you see in the Bible of Jesus doesn't just come and say, hey, I have salvation for you, even though you're sick or you're hungry or you're, lacking in whatever you might need. I'm just going to give you salvation. Like, he comes and he actually many times will meet the physical or emotional need, and first, then that salvation just makes so much more sense. Right. So I would say Micah kind of has that heart as well of how can we just love the community in which we work, and while we are helping meet needs and just pouring into areas where people are broken and need life, how can we then speak the truth of Jesus into that?
That's really cool.
Cool. Nomás quería clarificar un poquito para los que están escuchando y que tal vez pues no saben exactamente qué es Micah. es prácticamente exclusivo de aquí de Costa Mesa, ¿no?
Yep.
O sea, es una
West
organización en el West Side de Costa Mesa, y el West Side, digamos, Costa Mesa está dividido por, no sé exactamente cómo se dividirá, pero el lado oeste de Costa Mesa, o sea, el West Side, es mayormente latino y vive 4 veces más población que en el East Side Costa Mesa, ¿no? Entonces, nomás para un poquito la gente que tengan un poquito de contexto
Sí.
cuando escuchen qué es West Side y qué es
that's
Micah,
good.
¿no?
Es el oeste.
Me encanta. Yo sé que tú vives en una calle aquí en Costa Mesa que se llama Shalimar, que es muy conocida pues porque toda su población es básicamente latina,
Es
¿no?
raza.
De Centroamérica, de México, etcétera. ¿Qué fue lo que te motivó a, o sea, podrías haber venido y participar y envolverte con la cultura latina, pero decidiste envolverte a tal grado que vives ahí en medio de la cultura latina? Y pienso que eso no lo hace cualquiera. ¿Qué es lo que te llamó a estar ahí?
Pues era algo que le estaba contando a alguien hoy, que ese llamado de ir a servir, a amar a los latinos, yo siempre pensé que iba a ser en otro país. Y volví a Honduras como hace, creo que 4 años, pero ya estaba involucrado en Micah. Volví a Honduras, es como que Dios nació ese llamado de nuevo en mi corazón. Y yo empecé por mi cuenta a buscar cómo puedo salirme de aquí de California y irme a Honduras ya. Porque Dios, esto fue tu plan que tú tuviste para mi vida, que ir a las naciones. Y hice todo menos de rendir o quit my job. Pero había dicho a toda mi familia que me voy a mudar a enseñar en una escuela bilingüe cristiana ahí en Honduras. Y fue el momento que fui en un martes a mi clase de inglés, que había empezado ya, y había estado como unos 5 meses, pero ya había creado unas buenas relaciones con la gente. And I went and I was like, this is the night I have to break the news. These are the last people before my job that I have to tell. Yeah. And I went and told them, like, hey guys, love you, but God has put this call in my heart to move to Honduras. And they were just broken. They were like, and it's not to kind of be prideful, but they were saying things like, well, no hay nadie como tú, que no puede ser otro maestro igual que tú, Nick. And I kind of got this feeling that, oh, wow, maybe I had actually been building these great relationships with people in a place where God wanted me to be, and I just didn't realize it. So that I literally left that class that night, and it was dark, so it was great, but like crying. Literally like, okay, God, I was about to quit my job in, a week's time, probably buy a plane ticket and, kind of say, see you later, California. And I think he totally changed my mindset of, God is with us wherever we're choosing to be obedient to him. So it's not necessarily of where you are. It's kind of how you're responding to that call in God's life in your present moment. And so after that, when I decided like, okay, God, you actually already have me in a place among Latinos and building relationships and just kind of investing, why don't I see, if I'm staying here and not going to Honduras, why don't I see how I can just do that in a Costa Mesa setting? And so it actually Christine was a lot of inspiration. She actually, one of the co-founders of Micah, she and her husband at the time lived in the apartment that I actually live in. She connected me with my now roommate, Sergio, and we were friends at the time, but she was like, hey, I think he would want to move into the neighborhood too. And it just worked out. Like God literally worked everything out to where they were moving out at a certain time, gave us enough notice, we moved in. Wow. And it was kind of like this torch was being passed. So, and
to take it a little further, if you realize too our current climate of how life is here, especially like in California, we have someone from North Carolina who's white coming to a generally basically like 100% Hispanic neighborhood. And, we're living in a little bit of a turbulent time where people of Latin descent are kind of afraid to to be out and about because of, you know, just the political climate, and to see how your story and why God made you stay. It's such a testament of like you following through, like kind of waiting on God's timing, and how he just kind of brought everything back full circle. And now we're here right now talking about it. And it's like, God has it perfectly planned out. That's awesome.
David.
Well, I was going to ask, because I you know, I grew up in Santa Ana, which is just like the West. It's literally the whole city is just 100% Hispanic.
Right.
Did you get any backlash moving in a neighborhood like that? Because knowing me as a kid, if
From
my
family, you mean, or
no, just from like the
general?
families, because you know, like knowing me as a kid,
Güero?
yeah, exactly. In my neighborhood, if I'm like, what the heck? I was like, if I would have seen something, you know, like a white person moving, I would have been like, well, that's weird. Like, hey, what are you doing here? And like, I would have been like, what are you know? I would have been cool, but I'm like, what are you doing here? Did you get any type of backlash, or anybody kind of like, what the heck? Like, what are you doing here? Or
I think at first I probably got some of those looks, but I think and I would even say that if I were to move just on my own, no relationships to Santa Ana or another Hispanic neighborhood, even in Costa Mesa, I think it would be much different. But it's the relationships that I had with people within Micah, you know, because they've been around 14 plus years, I think. And Effie, who's somebody who's worked at Micah for years, kind of like an adopted mom now. She just did a really good job at, you know, as kind of she saw not just the potential as a volunteer, but like as somebody that could be part of this community. She did really well at like, hey, let's go do a home visit with this family. I mean, way before I lived there. Wow. Let's, you know,
so
I want you to meet this mom or these kids, or you know, get more involved in this way in this specific, you know, in the Shalimar community. So by the time I moved in, and I think because of Christine being able to also vouch for me, you know, and people associated us together and have just really fond feelings about her and, you know, the work she's been part of. It just made it was almost seamless. And, you know, day one, literally my roommate and I had one of our neighbors, Rocio and Mario, send us like food.
That's so cool.
You know, like, oh, here's your welcome dinner. I'm like, yes.
That's so cool.
Send more, please. Anytime you want. If you're listening, I accept food at any time of day.
That's your love language?
That is my love language.
So cool. Did you ever get any pushback from, or, you know, from family, or because you said, you know, your mom and your dad weren't like so sure about the Latino, you know, outreach or whatever. Did they ever like tell you, hey man, what are you doing, or anything like that?
Well, at first I think they were like, you're moving into the ghetto. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, no, I promise I've been there. It's fine. Like, I'm gonna be all right. It's safe enough to the standards that I feel safe. And, you know, safety is sometimes relative. You know, some people need, you know, guardrails all around them to feel safe. But I just felt, and I still do feel, much more known, which I think in a community, if you're known, you probably feel safer because you have a lot more people kind of pendiente de ti.
Pendiente.
I can't think of the right word in English, so
that's a very
awesome.
that's a very Hispanic thing to say.
Pendiente.
Te doy un 10 en español.
Wow. Yes, I
Love
made
it.
But yeah, family, I'd say ever since I was 15 and would voice like, oh, I feel called by God to, you know, to the Latin people and all of this, like, most of my family looked at me like I had 3 heads. Oh. Except for my mom. I would love you, Mom, if you're watching. Just really was always very supportive and encouraging. And she even, before I could drive, we found a Latin church through people we knew that pastored there. And so I was going to a Latin church at like 15, 16. Cool. And I think now, for the most part, it's more of, I'd say most family is, a lot of my family has come and they've seen the neighborhood or interacted with a lot of the family. So I think little by little, you know, especially like probably my dad or aunt and uncle, like they're seeing just a different perspective of Latin culture and just how warm and welcoming people can be. But yeah, I think it's more of, they probably just have more of like a tolerance. I don't feel like most people don't ask me about my neighborhood anymore.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, you've been there 3.5 years, so
You're
what
good.
could be new? Right.
Yeah.
And do you think that has, or at least a perception of it like ghetto or whatever from your upbringing in North Carolina? Is it like different growing up there than it is to growing up here?
Yeah. I mean, North Carolina, I mean, yeah, it's a lot of it too is, I don't know. You just when, especially if you grow up in the country,
Yeah.
you're just used to, we live on our own land, and we can talk to our neighbors if we want to. So like, it's kind of this isolationism a lot of times that makes you have this perceived safety.
Right.
And a lot of things that me personally, like I love going back home, but I almost feel more lonely when I go back home because I feel like I'm just so isolated from people. I don't have neighbors beside me that if I walk down the street, I get to have a 5-minute conversation with, or, kids that pop in to, to say, hey, and like, hey, what's up after school or something like that. So it's definitely, I think, just all to do with probably more of how my family has been raised and what they've known to be kind of what a neighborhood or what, that should look like.
Right.
And so I think all of life is about breaking down perceptions of whether they're true or not, and just bringing people into, well, this is reality. So experience it yourself, make your own judgment. Don't necessarily come up with your idea just by a drive-by,
Yeah.
Increíble. ¿Cómo sientes tú ahorita estuviste en Honduras y, por ejemplo, ahorita pues si has escuchado de la caravana que venía de Centroamérica y todo eso, ¿qué sentimientos produce dentro de ti todo esto de inmigrantes que quieren venir, que están en la frontera, que no pueden entrar, que sí pueden entrar, que se les pueda dar asilo político, que hay gente que nomás los quiere mandar para atrás? No sé, ¿cuál es tu sentimiento, tu visión, tu anhelo, lo que te gustaría ver?
That's a good question.
It's a loaded question.
And I think sometimes, like, I still have to probably, like, I would consider myself politically moderate, coming from very conservative roots. So I would say I sometimes have to pull myself out of conservative roots, and because I still hear a lot of stuff from family, and kind of put myself back into this, like, well, biblically, based on, like, if my nation and my home and my longing for just everything I want in life is based on God and His kingdom, then how would I look at kind of the political environment with immigration and all of that? And I think it's twofold. Yes, there is part of the legality and non-legality of immigration, but I think a lot of that is very flawed from a political standpoint. There needs to be some sort of reform around that, because it can get a little crazy how long for people even who do it the right way from the get-go, how it can take years and years and years before anybody can have kind of this legal status in this country. And I think even more so when you just like look at the humanity of people. Like, I've been in Honduras, I've seen literally people that like live in dumps, that like kids are walking around in in like sewage infested shacks that are built with just scrap materials and made out of mud and sticks, and it's just, this country is filled with so many amazing people, and same with, I'd say, all of really Central America, Mexico, that area, and just people that, I mean, they're just trying to survive as much as we all are.
Right.
And I think a lot of times most people in this country don't, because they haven't been and seen kind of just this drastic difference of how people live, and not just necessarily poverty, but I've heard stories from my friend in Honduras of he had uncles that they looked alike, and one was a politician, one wasn't, and guess what? The one who wasn't accidentally got killed by the gangs and stuff, because they thought he was the other brother, and then the other brother got killed. And you just hear of all this stuff and just uncertainty with life, and you kind of if you put yourself in those shoes, you're like, would I want to leave if I were in a pocket of that country that was extremely unsafe, would I want to leave and go to this country that, yeah, it's not perfect. It's not going to be this, American dream for everybody, but probably it's going to be a better situation than, where a lot of these people are coming from. Right. So I think what our country needs to do is like put aside politics and just look at the humanity piece of it all and just realize, and if people haven't gone to these countries, like just do some research, like look at, just look at statistics. And I mean, in the world of internet where you can look up pictures of like real life, there's organizations, World Vision, whoever it is, and find information on what is life actually like in these countries. Because I think when people realize that, then they kind of come to the understanding of like, well, I can't blame these people for doing that same exact thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
We're all like jaw dropped. That's crazy.
So I mean, yeah, it's definitely a hard environment to live because there's just so much. So this country is so driven on your own opinion, and it's all about like, well, I want to be right on my opinion versus, well, let me listen, and then maybe we can come to some sort of like mutual agreement together of, under this kind of unification of humanity and just loving your neighbor, whether it's your neighbor here or, from another country.
Same. Yes.
You wanted to follow up?
No, you're good. Yep. David, any questions?
Well, no, I really like what you're saying, and it's really refreshing because I mean, you come from a region in the country that historically, loving your neighbor's always been kind of a more of a word thing than actually doing it, and so it's really awesome that you're obviously really involved with the Hispanic community, because I'm sure that, from where you come from, that would probably trip a lot of people out. They would never even guess that, like, hey, I'm going to go work in a completely Hispanic neighborhood, and in this community that's touched you so much. So, it's awesome to see that, and it's awesome where God's called you. And it's also cool to see that, again, it's a reminder of God doesn't see color, doesn't see anything. He just literally sees hearts, and he sees people, and he sees people that are in need, and whether you're, wherever you come from, God's going to send you wherever he needs to send you. So, but does that trip you out? The fact that you grew up in a region of the country that is obviously, we all know what it's historically known for, but does it trip you out to because it's funny. We're both in the United States, but there couldn't be two more different regions of the country than the American South and Southern California. Yep. It's completely two different state of minds, people, one's more conservative than the other. Does that trip you out, what you're doing now,
Yeah, it trips me out, quite honestly. And I mean, to give, I guess, North Carolina a little more credit of, yes, the region, I think, is staunchly conservative.
Unfortunately.
And in a lot of ways stuck in its ways, especially when it comes to, I don't even want to call it immigration, but I just want to say, and like, welcoming all people of, of all colors. And, but I would say the key denominator in all of it, of anywhere you see somebody that, I mean, really, and it doesn't even have to be living in a neighborhood cross-culturally, or it could be something crazy you're doing in your workplace or things like that. Anywhere God is calling people to move in a radical way is like, God is that ultimate denominator. And I would say that, it's encouraging for me because even, I know a girl from college that lives in Durham, and she and her husband, and they went to the same church I went to in college, which kind of formed a lot of this ideology in me. But they live in a mostly African American neighborhood, and like I see pictures of them with like 5 or 6, African American kids that are hanging out at their house that they're like mentoring and loving, and that's awesome. And so it's and I have a friend and his wife that after college moved and became missionaries in I guess East Asia, and so just kind of wild when there's people over here when you see that even if you come from the most like deep rooted conservative, whatever it might be, background, or the most liberal or whatever it might be, if people open up their hearts to God and really like listen to what he's speaking to them, like God can do anything radical in anybody's life. You know, he can transform the worst of sinners, like Paul says, into people who are devout and proclaiming the name of Jesus and doing it wherever God calls them. So yeah, I'm still shocked. Like when I think of like, oh, I grew up. I mean, most people see it, they're like, you're a country boy and you speak Spanish. Like what? Like how did that happen?
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Well, I don't know if you guys read today. Last year, a girl was killed.
I read today last year
that last year a girl got killed at one of the protests, the white supremacist rally, and they sentenced the guy who ran over her with 419 years in prison, and I think like 2 extra lifetimes sentencing. So what do you guys, you know, obviously we're taught to forgive and to pray for people who do these kinds of things, but there's people who are suffering because of these acts. So how do we as believers kind of teach others like about forgiveness in those kinds of instances?
I was like, which one are you looking at? Beto or me or David?
Well, I mean, if there's a question, I mean, I guess we'd have to look at Paul, for example. Paul was a guy who was basically like this religious type of terrorist type of guy. He was terrorizing people. He was sending people to their deaths, you know, and I'm sure that when he got converted, a lot of Christian people at the time were like, I don't know, like, you know, and yet he wrote all these, you know, letters, and he's basically like the greatest, you know, apostle of all time, and he's obviously influenced Christianity. So, you know, justice, always has to be justice. You know, God's a God of justice, and justice will always, you know, God will always make a way for it. But, you know, I think it's, as a Christian, it's always our duty just to forgive, not to judge people. And I know that's hard, easier said than done.
Yes.
And especially for the family of this young lady who tragically and really senselessly got killed. But you know, I think if Paul can
can do it, we can do it.
If Paul can do it and he can be forgiven, you know, of all those things, you know, that he did, and
it's a good tagline, bro. If Paul can do it,
we can do it. Well, no, and this guy was openly like, he would openly tell people like, hey, you know, this is who I was and who I used to be, and now I'm changed. So
yeah.
Yo pienso que lo difícil de perdonar en esa situación, cuando vienes de, pues, un crimen de odio, un crimen racial, es que yo pienso que a cualquier persona se le hace más difícil perdonar la ignorancia de otra persona.
Sí.
¿No? Porque puedes, no sé, como que si si entendieras los razonamientos de los demás, o estuvieran como que en su derecho, en su, ¿cómo te diré? If they were right in their thinking, then maybe it would be easier, right? But since you know they're obviously ignorant and wrong in their belief, right?
Right.
That's the hardest part to forgive.
Yeah.
Porque entonces estás pensando, ¿cómo voy a...? O sea, lo que quiero es que le den lo que se merece.
Right.
¿No? Y es bien difícil. Y por eso, por ejemplo, cuando está Jesucristo en la cruz y dice las palabras como perdónalos porque no saben lo que hacen, es básicamente esa misma situación, ¿no?
Yeah.
Es gente que está haciendo
un crimen de odio.
Un acto de odio y totalmente ignorante. O sea, ellos saben lo que están haciendo, pero ignorante del amor, ignorante del respeto, ignorante del, no sé, la esperanza, el perdón. O sea, están completamente ignorantes a esto, y a veces la única manera en que pueden salir de esa ignorancia es a través del perdón.
Sí.
Because if they don't know forgiveness, they won't come out of their ignorance, because only forgiveness can bring them out of it.
And yeah, I mean, it's a difficult conversation to have, even just, you know, thinking about the night that Donald Trump got elected. I had to run an errand, and on my way back home, I got stopped by 2 cars, and one had the Confederate flag and another one had the American flag on it. And, I was kind of like, okay, but they stopped me. They cornered me, and they're like,
wait. A ver, otra vez. ¿Había dos carros? ¿Cómo?
Dos carros, y se me atravesaron los dos, one in front of the car and one behind me. One had the Confederate flag and another car had the American flag. And, I was kind of like, what's going on? And the guy...
un standoff o algo así?
Yeah, literally. They stopped me and they're like, go back to your country. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And when you... I mean, that's nothing compared...
Which is your country, by the way?
Yo soy salvadoreña.
Ah.
So...
Did you go back?
Go back where? No,
To your country?
I didn't.
She's like, okay.
I was just curious.
Tanya was like,
Okay.
okay, I should go
She
back.
flew out for the podcast.
They told me to
today.
go back to my country, and I went.
So I went.
So I went. No, but that's so
Then
crazy.
what?
You know what though? It made me laugh afterwards because I'm like, well, this is my country. I'm Salvadorian American. I'm first generation. My parents came here from the war in El Salvador like years ago. Escaping the violence, escaping, all the mayhem that was going on. And, this is my country. This is home for me. Mm-hmm. So for people to kind of do that, it kind of like kind of shook me. And I was like, this is nothing compared to what so many people around our country are going through. And it is hard to kind of like sit back and think like, oh, well, I'm going to forgive them. It is easier said than done. But yeah, we need to look back to Jesus and kind of like, Lord, help me, because I don't know what to do.
Well, he forgave, what was it, when Jesus was crucified, he forgave the guy that was next to him, who was a criminal.
Yeah.
And he forgave him, told him, hey, today you're going to be in paradise with me. So I made a place for you. So, and no, it's pretty crazy. Well, just a few years before what happened last year, was that young guy that went into the church and this African-American church and he shot people
in South Carolina.
And they forgave him at the trial. They forgave him. They even welcomed him back. And I'm like, Jesus, to even, you know what I mean? It's like these people lost so much. It's such a tragedy. And to look that guy in the face and be like, hey, we forgive you. You're even welcome here. It's
that's wild.
Wow. You're just like, wow. That's like putting skin on Jesus. Literally. It's like, it boggled my mind when I heard that, because I'm like, not a lot of people would do that, and that's like, but that's Jesus. That's what Jesus would want us to do. As hard as that is, it's as illogical sometimes as that is. It's like, well, no, that's the whole logic of the gospel. Like, we're all sinners. We all, at one point or another,
preach it, bro. Come on,
do dumb things in our lives. And
somebody
Jesus
watching right now that needs to hear that.
Put your hand on the screen right now. Beto's gonna pray for you.
Put your hand on your phone.
But no, that's a really good question.
Excellent. Have you ever encountered, Nick, anything like that? I've like Tanya just shared her experience. I've had a few experiences here in Costa Mesa along those lines. Kind of like I would be speaking Spanish, and then people would be like, "Hey, we're in America, speak English, and why don't you go back?" and things like that. Have you ever witnessed anything like that, like within the Hispanic community where you live, or people coming up to you and saying, "Hey, I went through this, and they told me this," and they kind of trust you to tell you that?
Yeah, I don't think I've witnessed it firsthand, but I've definitely heard stories and even from people I'm closest with that are Latinos, and I'm always like, what? Like, because I think there is, like, for me, there's this belief that, I live in California and people are much more inclusive, but I've come to understand, like, even maybe less in LA County, but Orange County still has a lot of very conservative roots. And honestly, sometimes I feel like I'm in North Carolina because of, to be honest, the white culture here versus the white culture, like, I see a lot of similarities in how, even a lot of Christians will talk about immigration or just different topics that I'm like, that's totally an American way of talking about things, not like a Christian God-centered way of talking about things. And so I think a lot of times there's probably even believers that are the ones that are kind of carrying out these, and sometimes it's not like the stories I've heard. It's not that it's like this hateful, like demeaning thing, but it's just something like this person's Latino, and so I'm gonna do something because I don't like their people to make them uncomfortable or, you know, or incomodarles. You know, what's the word in English? I don't know. To kind of, I can't think of it, but you know, to put them in a situation. Yeah, there's a different one, but that's good enough for now. So I've heard stories, and I think I'm always just taken aback because it just comes back to like, wow, I guess there's really people like that all over the country. Yeah. But on the flip side, you know, looking at the positive, there's also people, you know, I remember it was I think it was a documentary that I saw on DACA, and it was an older gentleman, literally older than probably my grandparents, that was like this devout advocate for Latinos in Nashville, Tennessee. Wow. You know, like, and I remember seeing this dude on a documentary, and I'm like almost in tears because thinking, wow, so there are people, you know, from where I'm from that kind of are being this active voice for, you know, for the Latino community or just immigrant community in general. So it's definitely, it opens my eyes when I hear those stories, and I think helps me just become more aware of kind of like what you were talking about, Tanya, of even understanding stuff as simple of people right after the election were scared to go to El Super or Northgate or certain supermarkets because they heard, well, ICE is going to be there, and we heard it. I mean, I actually call in those supermarkets for work, and I heard kind of news from them of like, we've lost foot traffic because of this. And so when you kind of realize some of these things that as a white American, I'm probably never going to experience something like that in this country. So for me, it's good to always hear those stories because it brings me back to like being able to just understand kind of for lack of better words, the plight of the immigrant, you know?
And do you believe, you know, it's been thrown around so much, do you believe there is a white privilege?
Yes. It's like, it's definitely a hard thing to admit, and I'm sure like if I were to go to another country where white is the minority, I don't think that would, but in this country, yes, I absolutely think, and somebody I was talking to today, we were talking about genocides, and she had this just very interesting thought of, why is it that the Holocaust is this genocide that in this country we just focus so much on? And yes, it was devastating. Yeah. Right. But a coworker of mine told me the other day that, there was this crazy genocide in the 80s in Cambodia, and the genocides of Armenian genocide or Rwanda, or all these places that I think because we do just kind of glorify the white man or white woman as these are the most important people. So we focus even historically on those people that have been affected around the world. And I think that's something that definitely people need to start to mold and shape in a new way. And honestly, it just comes back to having that humanity as the common denominator of like, we're all like, we might all look different, but you know, we all have hearts and minds and dreams and aspirations and people we love and care about. And so why can't we just put those barriers down and treat people as if they are our equals, you know, as God commanded, as God created it to be.
Yeah. Incredible. Oye, hablas de, bueno, yo soy de México, entonces a veces hay algunos términos de aquí que me confunden un poquito. Entonces, cuando tú mencionas conservative, que dices, que la gente es conservadora y todo eso, más o menos como que lo comparas o lo pones en el mismo lugar de malo, ¿no? O sea, si eres conservador es malo, and then the opposite is good, or the welcoming side is good. That's how I kind of like feel you're saying it. But I'm sure a lot of these conservative people are probably, I mean, maybe they're just ignorant, like you said, you know, to the Latino community and how they live and how welcoming they could be and things like that. But what would be your how would you approach, somebody like that, and how would you invite them to be open to this idea that, maybe people are people and they can be fine?
I think, and to your point, yeah, I think conservative often, especially in California, just like if you're in North Carolina, California is this far left liberal, like you're just going to become a hippie and like, whatever, and become a liberal Californian is kind of what I would hear from my family. So on the flip side, I think there's, a perception that conservatives are like, they're all this one way. And it's a broad array of beliefs, whether it's fiscal or political or, or immigration or moral or things like that. But I do think for that person that is like this diehard Confederate flag toting conservative that like, this is America, we only speak English, and if you're not from here, go back to your own country. Hey, that's just probably a hard person to have a conversation with in general. But I think the key is, with those people that, even other listeners might have relationships with that are connected with the Latino community or another immigrant community, the key is just inviting people in to relationship. And that's what I think has helped with. Not that my family has all this. They don't have all this hatred, but there's just this ignorance of like, we don't know enough about these people that like they, when you don't know a lot about people, there's this distance and you don't trust, and you just because of ignorance.
You're unfamiliar.
And so I think even for me, like the more I've gotten to know Latin people or really any people from a different culture or ethnicity, the more that my walls break down of like, oh, this, like, I see the commonalities of myself and this person. And so I think that's the key, is inviting people in wherever you can. And that's like the beauty of like Micah and West Side is there's always, for anybody connected in Micah, there's always this opportunity of like, hey, like come to this event, or, we're going to do a dinner with a local, family. So why don't we get a family from East Side that's probably an Anglo family that is just curious, and have them get together and have dinner together once a month. And it just breaks down those barriers and, and allows people to build relationships and get to know one another.
Stronger communities, yeah.
From a personal standpoint versus getting to know a group of people based on what Fox News or CNN or, or some media source that's probably biased in some ways, is spewing out.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah. De nada.
I have a burning question. ¿Quién te corta el cabello?
Oh, well, Nancy's salon.
Nice. They do a great job.
Surprisingly, I remember the first time I looked that place up, I'm like, salon. That means that it's like 95% women getting their hair cut. And I don't think to this day I've ever seen a woman in there. So Nancy's salon for men. And all of the peluqueras are Latinas, so they're always like, ¿qué haces hablando español, güero?
Ay, güerito, yo te...
Se pelean para ver quién te corta el pelo.
Well, I have another...
There was only one lady yesterday, so no fights yesterday. But usually, yes.
You were all for her.
All hers.
They already have a reserved seat for you.
Yeah, seriously.
A ver, güerito,
I get an extra neck.
I'm gonna use the buzzer.
They got the extra neck
extra
massage
nice
for
ones.
me.
You get the hot towel treatment.
Yeah.
Hot towel treatment.
How you liking that?
She takes extra longer. Oh, here, hold on.
Let me cut a little behind your ear.
Okay, you're making it weird.
He's really getting into this.
Beto's a man of
Excelente.
many
Yo pienso
different
que, bueno, las relaciones, ¿cómo se llama? No, ¿cómo se llama? Interracial relationships?
Uh-huh.
Interracial relationships, right?
No, I don't know where this is going.
No, wait.
I was
It's
just gonna
about to
say,
get good.
Worst case scenario.
I want to see this.
What?
Worst case scenario, ignorant people just miss on maybe the love of their lives.
Oh, okay.
That's all I was gonna say.
Sí.
Right.
Muy bien.
Muy bien.
I was
No
gonna say,
dije nada.
No,
True,
nada
true,
malo.
true. That's
No,
good.
para nada.
I was gonna say, where'd you get your UGG boots, dude? Like for guys, like Beto's wearing like man Uggs.
Yeah.
Uggs. I don't remember.
Man,
Millie
Uggs
got
right
him
there.
for me.
Beto is the American dream right here.
Millie me da ropa y yo me la pongo.
That's
O
Millie-
no me la pongo,
Millie's
depende de lo que
Beto's
ella
wife.
quiera.
Oh,
And
God.
Millie's Beto's wife, for those of you guys listening,
Mhm.
and she dresses Beto.
She does a real good
O-
job.
¿Me viste o a veces no me viste?
O te desviste.
También. Pero bueno, un día les podemos dar unas pláticas de sexualidad.
Oh my God.
¿Ok?
Okay.
Este
Ah,
podcast
¿quieres
no es de
saber?
eso, brother.
Yes.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias, Nick, por haber compartido aquí con nosotros.
Yes, thank you very much.
Queremos invitar a todas las mujeres a que vean el video en Facebook, vayan a Hell No Pod, que chequen ahí a Nick, que nos manden mensajes si quieren saber más de él, si quieren saber su dirección ahí en las Shalimas.
I'm so sorry.
We're gonna
Sí,
play
nomás
the dating
que-
game.
Ellos van a pagar por las primeras 5 citas.
Sponsored by Hell No Podcast.
sin límite también.
Oh
No
my
hay
gosh.
límite.
We're
no
gonna
hay-
have
no-
a special
no.
Valentine's pod
Bueno,
edition.
primero,
We're gonna
esa-
sponsor tacos from what's that place here on 90 on the
Glorias. El
Glorias.
Toro Bravo.
El Toro
Toro
Bravo.
Bravo.
We're
Yeah.
gonna get tacos
Hope
from
you
Down.
Toro
like
Bravo.
tacos.
Oye, pero
Toro
se nos
Bravo.
olvidó preguntarles desde el principio.
Oh,
¿O
sí,
si le
cierto.
preguntamos?
No.
¿De
Si
qué?
estabas disponible.
¿Cómo disponible?
Like soltero,
Explica.
single. Where are
Yes.
you? Or like are you in a current
Dijo que
relationship?
sí. Está
¿Qué había dicho?
disponible.
He's single. You're single.
I am single.
And ready to mingle.
But are you ready to mingle?
Okay.
No. You could be single, but maybe not ready to
Are you
mingle.
ready to mingle?
If it's the right one.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Good,
There you go.
good
She's the
answer.
right
Requisitos, a ver, dinos los requisitos
Ay,
para
Beto.
la gente que nos está viendo.
I'm so
Oh,
sorry,
wow.
guys.
Así
You
rápido,
do
nomás
not
para
need to
Did you
answer.
see how
This
the
is
little
so
filter, so
awkward.
you know we don't just
No,
consider
this is good.
all
You
of them.
never know what's going to come out of this.
But
Let's see. Requisitos. First is that she loves Jesus.
Ooh.
And not just
Good
like,
one.
oh, I go to church on Sundays, but, you know, you can just tell by the way she lives and
Right.
loves people, like, actually loves Jesus.
Nice.
A negotiable...
if she's conservative, would she be part of that? Or?
Conservative,
It depends.
liberal.
It depends. The semi-negotiable that I've always battled with of, like, I used to think, like, I just want to marry a Latina. And then more recently, I'm like, well...
Now that you got to know them. Now that you got to
like,
know
well,
Latina
maybe
Now
women.
that I live among them.
Excuse me?
maybe a non-Latina that just loves the Latin community. So I'm kind of...
What
I'm
is
still-
wrong with the Latina, first of all?
No, I don't know. I think
First of all,
Let's just
I
say
That's
am-
what it's wrong.
let's just say they're very
Latina.
passionate. They're very
Me estás
passionate women.
ofendiendo.
passionate, yeah.
Let's just say they're very passionate
Passionate.
women.
¿Tú crees?
No, you know they
¿Será
say
así?
like you don't know what you want until you
Yeah.
until you
Yeah.
got it. So
Careful with the Hispanic
uno,
women, though.
que ame Jesús.
I don't
Okay.
know what
Que
you're talking about right now,
Jesus,
David. 'cause-
que sea bien aventurera, like que
Whoa.
no nada más que
aventura-
le gusta viajar, pero que le
Ujú.
gusta
Like camping,
así
hiking.
como camping, hiking, que le gusta
Vigilias,
que le,
you know.
que le gusta conocer otras culturas y como no nada más ir a pasear, sino como involucrarse
Shofares.
en
Mira, yo te recomiendo una latina. ¿Por qué?
Oh, ya estamos haciendo
Ya
haciendo
nos fuimos
listas.
de
Sabemos
Pros and
cocinar.
cons of dating a
Politics,
Latina. Pros and
ah,
cons of
consejos
dating a
You
matrimoniales.
both are married to Latinas, so please, pros. There should be no cons. Okay?
No cottons?
No cons.
No cons.
Oh, okay.
There's no cons.
Okay,
Okay.
go, Beto.
Me?
You're
Yeah.
older, so you start.
What's
of
your pro?
Oh. No, I just want to know his five. His
No,
Oh,
you
five. I have to get
or,
five.
or three or whatever many
Okay.
before
Okay.
I move on.
Everything
No.
about dating
Okay,
a
So
Latina
one,
is
Latino
awesome.
Jesus,
Thank you.
Yeah.
adventurous.
Okay.
I think driven in whatever way. I mean,
Nice.
even if that means to be a homemaker, that she like has this desire to do that well.
Right.
Personally, I think it's like I'm gonna find a woman that kind of has not necessarily a career, but something she's passionate about that she does that is her
Nice.
kind of work.
Right.
So that's 3, 4. 4. Let's see. Humor is always good. Humor and like being, I'm like semi reserved when you first meet me. So somebody that can pull me out of my shell. 'Cause a lot of times, like if I'm around somebody that's a lot quieter, it's hard for me to
Yeah.
be more of, Nick.
Hispanic girls will definitely pull you out of your
Yeah, that's true. Be like,
right.
ven a bailar, and I'm like, I have 2 left feet and my hips don't shake, so I think I have some problems.
That's funny.
Y ese puede ser un problema, en el matrimonio.
No,
Que uno baile y el otro no.
Sí, cierto.
It's true.
No, I
could be a
do
cause of
dance to
divorce.
Latin music though.
Nice.
Yeah,
I
be.
will get down. I went to a
Nice.
wedding in Costa Rica like
El
3 years ago,
sonidito?
and
Yeah.
it was great.
It's great.
Do you know who, ¿cómo se llama? Piri Piri Bam Bam?
Selena?
Do you know who Selena is?
I do.
That's my girl.
Okay.
I love her.
You got it. You're approved for Latinas.
Approved.
Thank you.
Number 5. Probably not set on living in the same place forever. It's like, while I love and I'm rooted here in California, I can imagine 10 years from now or whatever that might be, if you know, if kind of God puts that heart on me to go to another nation, that like that needs to be something that
Open to
maybe
the idea.
she already is open to. Yeah.
Very cool.
¿Quieres que oremos por eso?
Jeez.
O ya oramos después.
Yeah, afterwards. We'll bring out the holy
All of you
water and all
listening,
that.
if you can pray as well,
Let's intercede.
Yes.
Intercede.
lay hands on me through the
Chidísimo.
phone.
Bueno, pues ya Nick nos comentó todas sus historias, sus requisitos para las mujeres que quieran acercarse a él. ¿Alguien tiene alguna pregunta más
That sounds
antes de
terrible.
despedirnos?
I know that sounds like.
Nick is actually really
Requisitos,
nice.
así
This
dijo,
is Beto just being
requisitos.
Beto.
All right, ladies. Who
I'm
needs
sure
their
there's
papers?
a lot more.
estaría muy bien.
Papers.
Who needs their who needs their green card?
Wow, David.
Only
went
for
that
true
way.
love.
Only for true love. That's
Only for
it.
true
I
love.
Yo conozco a unas que... La esposa de Paul. Que pues hizo eso.
I actually know a girl from another country in North America that shocked me, that I'm not even going to say from where I know her, so people don't realize. But, pero ella me pidió un día, me dijo, Nick, ¿te casarías conmigo nada más para que yo
Papeles.
podría agarrar mis papeles? Y le dije, pues sí, estás bien bonita y todo.
Ahí estaba la oportunidad
y eres
grande.
muy buena persona, pero si no tengo ese amor por ti, no, sorry. Aunque me pagarías $10,000, like, sorry. Tienes
That's
que
cool.
buscar otro chavo.
Ya ven, muchachas, es digno de amor.
A mí se me hacía bien la oferta, pero bueno.
Beto would have been like, sale.
A ver, vamos.
If I would have been born here, somebody gives me that option. Like, you give me 10,000, we start a new life.
Beto.
Pretty good.
You hear that, Millie? No.
Ya escuchaste,
No
Mili.
es cierto, me casé con Millie por puritito amor porque los dos estamos sin papeles. We're in a process. We're in a
Probably
process.
should, yeah, don't say that out loud.
No pasa nada.
No, sí, cierto. Ok. Bueno, muchas gracias, Nick, por estar con nosotros ahora.
Thank you.
Pues gracias a ustedes.
Yeah, thank
Fue un
you.
placer.
Excelente.
Excelente.
Bueno, ¿por qué no nos despides, Tania? Le dices a la gente cómo puede encontrarnos.
Okay, we're on Facebook at facebook.com/hellnopod. We're also on Instagram at instagram.com/hellnopod. And big news, everyone, we're finally on Spotify.
Yeah!
As of this week, baby, we're on Spotify. So if you search for Hell No Podcast under podcasts and videos, you'll find us like within the first few rows.
No se confundan con el otro que dice, oh, hell no.
Sí, ese no es. Yo lo escuché, me dio miedo.
We're under a cult podcast and spiritual.
We're under.
Oh,
No, never mind. So yeah, we're on Spotify, guys. Thank you. Please follow us there. Follow us on Instagram. You know, there's a new algorithm. So the more you like and the more you comment on our posts, the more we get out there. So
Awesome. I think it's also good if they like give reviews on
Yes.
like, what's it called? iTunes?
on
Music?
iTunes,
something?
yes, on iTunes you can do
You
reviews.
can leave a review on Yelp if you want to.
No, you can't do that one.
Oh, I'm just kidding.
But
You should do it.
you can also do a review on Facebook. We already have our 5 out of 5. So that's good.
Wow.
I don't know who put it, but that's cool.
Who's
Pretty
Millie?
good.
It was probably me.
Millie no, les digo, Millie no cree en la tecnología. De puro milagro escuchó el podcast pasado.
Ay, mira qué chido.
She's gonna listen to this. She's gonna
Yeah.
be
Sí.
like, Beto.
Te van
Oh,
a
on YouTube.
regañar.
She watches on YouTube. That
Oh,
she
I'm not
does.
regañar. No,
But
no
she
es cierto.
doesn't have Spotify, she not iTunes, not anything
It's
like that.
okay. Yeah, so that's how you can find us.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tania.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Gracias
We
por haber
have
estado.
one more podcast before the year ends. It's going to be our Christmas, or I'm sorry, I have to be politically correct. Our holiday edition.
No Christ in Christmas.
No Christ in Christmas.
Okay,
Not
Feliz
even a-
Navidad. Va a ser nuestro podcast navideño.
You guys are turning
Navideño.
into Starbucks now.
I
with the-
know, Disneyland. Yeah. So yeah, tune in for that. We're
You
going to
can't
come
say
all
hell
dressed up.
Then
Hell yeah, I can.
isn't it politically incorrect?
No, it is correct because I said so.
Okay.
So yeah. All right, guys. Any last words?
See you guys later.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Peace out.
Over and out.
See ya.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Yeah.
That was fun.